please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, we'll get back to that as and when, Mr. Trump says something that's, very, very important. And we'll also keep the tick alive and keep getting you flashes from there. But for us, the big event is going to be the budget. And ahead of the budget, we have been getting you expectations from global investors. Here's the wish list coming in from Jacobsen of Wells Fargo Asset Management.
Infotech in general has been doing quite well. When I look at the MSCI India index, it is a pretty good chunk of that index. I think it's second only to financials in there. In a way, I think that because those companies tend to be the most well-known outside of India, they also tend to be the most heavily covered by sell-side analysts and maybe picked over a little bit too much by investors. And that's why I prefer to look sort of outside of that area. It's not to say that there aren't some opportunities, but just more broadly speaking, I think that it's outside of Infotech that there's probably better opportunities.
Well, I wanted to chat a bit about the PSU banking space as well. The first phase of recapitalization has been announced. Are they looking like a bargain now?
Yeah, so the recapitalization plan, it does. I know that when it was announced, a lot of people were trying to figure out exactly how it was going to work and how it would actually benefit the banks. But I think that it symbolically is really important because for many years now, it's been widely known that the banking system hasn't been functioning the way that it perhaps could be. And so I think that symbolically it was a really important step forward for them to recapitalize the banks. Now, I don't necessarily think that means that the banks are a screaming buying opportunity despite the recapitalization. Oftentimes what we've seen in other countries, when they have tried to improve the functioning of their banking system, sometimes what happens is the equity holders end up not fully participating in that improved health of the bank, because that what happens then is maybe it benefits bondholders or it benefits depositors. So there could be opportunities, but we're still a little shy when it comes to trying to pursue opportunities there.
Okay, now let me come to the budget itself. What would you like to see? Any specifics, any regulatory changes, any new policy announcements that you're expecting from the finance minister?
Yeah, so the budget is always, it's almost it is an annual ritual, but I think for investors it's an annual ritual as well for us to come up with almost our wish list of things that we would like to see in it. And I think that just speaking for the multi-asset solutions team with Wells Fargo Asset Management, one of the things that we really want to see is continued commitment to improve infrastructure in India, and then also to really, I think, make more steps forward for unifying the various regions of India. Moving towards this national goods and services tax, I think, was a good way to make it easier to do business in India. To sort of standardize the way in which they do the taxation of goods and services. I think that was an important step forward, and I'd like to see that continue because there have been a few issues as far as implementation. Last year in November, you had the demonetisation program that was, I think, kind of a headwind to growth. Then you also had the kind of a clumsy rollout of this goods and services tax, and it looks like, are they really going to enforce this uniformly or not? So I would just really recommitment to that. But of course, there's also then the issue about budget deficits. To what extent will investors continue to give the government a pass by having budget deficits? I think that as long as they're making incremental steps towards opening up the economy and unifying the economy nationally, that investors will continue to allow them to run budget deficits without too many adverse effects.
Okay, all right, let's focus then. Let's talk about the commodity and currency space. Manisha Gupta joins us early this morning, as always, to run us through what's going on there. Hey, Manisha, good morning.
Hey, morning. Thank you for that. Well, it is the U.S. dollar which has weakened a bit, and that could have been supported. But then the U.S. president is still speaking, and the markets are hoping that he will speak something on the infra spending, and that, of course, would give a lot of push to the dollar and many of those industrial metals. If that doesn't happen, then, of course, you have the Fed statement today in the evening from Janet Yellen, her last meeting that she's chairing, and markets would hitch on to for the outlook for economy, inflation, monetary policy outlook, etc. That is where the next direction would come in from. Having said in sense of prices, we of course have started slightly on a weaker note. The crude oil prices have declined 3% in last two trading sessions itself. We're just about holding $68 now. You also have seen pressure come in for the industrial metals today in the Asian markets. Yesterday, the last couple of days, remember, was really good, but we have seen some profit taking come in here as well, as markets do await further data, further events to see further support in prices from here on. The speculative money, in the meanwhile, is still holding. You have record longs when it comes to crude. Also, for many of these metals, they are trading at a multi-year high, but you will need to some more specific positive data from here on. Another quick one for this week would be the U.S. jobs data on Friday. That's yet another important number. The China PMI numbers are coming in today. That would also give direction to prices. So a heavy loaded week in sense of international markets as well when it comes to direction.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much for that, Manisha. Well, we'll cut back to Mr. Trump as and when he's talking about immigration, the economy, the infra spending as well that we have been waiting for. But in terms of the U.S. markets, yeah, that's the important blade that's up for you on the screen. Yesterday, we did see that the Dow ended with a sharp cut. The Nasdaq as well was under some pressure. And in fact, the last couple of trading sessions, there has been some selling in terms of the U.S. markets. But it's not just that. Even the European markets, in yesterday's trade, the three frontliners were down between 0.8% to around 1%. What's really hurting? First of all, we've had such a big run. So that's point number one. The second factor is that, in fact, bond prices, they, in fact, have been moving around and the yields have been spiking up. So that's something that's, in fact, hurting the markets and causing a bit of a dent in terms of sentiment. Asian markets, though, this morning, they were relatively flattish or trading mildly in the red terrain. Currently, in fact, some of those markets have moved further into the red. The Nikkei, that was as is down close to 25 points when we started the show. It's still lower. We normally correlate with the Hang Seng. So that market, in fact, is down close to around 130 points. And all this would mean that, in fact, the SGX Nifty was indicating we're likely to start off on the back foot with a cut of around 30 to around 35 points. And that stands even as of now. But let's get you some trading ideas for today. So shifting focus to our bullseye corner then, our contestants this week are Gaurav Ratnaparki, Vishal Malkan, as well as Shaina Mukaddam. They are battling it out for the strongest portfolio. So let's hear out what they've picked for today.
My first pick is Hindustan Zinc. I buy it with a day target of 330 and a stop loss of 298. Second, Prism Cement. I buy it with a day target of 147 and a stop loss of 128. Third, Godrej Industries. I sell it with a day target of 590 and a stop loss of 625. Fourth, L&T Finance. I sell it with a day target of 168 and a stop loss of 180.
My first buy call is on MRPL, stop loss 126 and target 134.50. Next one is a buy call on Jet Airways. Stop loss has been placed at 744, whereas target is at 795. The third one is on the short side, that is IDFC Bank Futures. Stop loss 58.80 and target 55. The last one is also on the short side, and that is Voltas Futures with stop loss at 624 and target 585.
Emphasis, buy with a stop of 870 for targets of 970. Polaris, buy with a stop of 395 for targets of 445. Hexaware, buy with a stop of 372 for targets of 420.
All right, then Vishal Malkan's last pick is also a buy call on Jet Airways. Target is placing at around 820 rupees. Stop loss is placing at around 755 rupees per share. But on that note, I think we'll wrap up on Power Breakfast. You stay with us because Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.